Welcome to the Becoming Baby Ready podcast, your podcast for queer family planning. My name is Sam, and throughout this podcast, you'll hear me have conversations with professionals who work alongside people who want to start and grow their families, as well as parents of intentionally created families. Everyone I speak to identifies as being part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. This is your opportunity to learn answers to questions you didn't even know you had. I am so excited to introduce you today to Tom Tracy. You may recognize that name as the author of the Scoochie and Skiddles books. They are outstanding. And in his books, he documents just the different adventures that Scoochie goes on with her cousin. And Scoochie has two dads. It's an amazing series, and his story of family creation is so much fun. So please stay tuned. Welcome, Tom. I'm so excited that you're here. What I'd really like to do to get started is to have you tell me who you are and about the members of your family.
Sure. Thanks, Sam. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah.
And really, I welcome any chance to talk about my family because I'm that kind of dad.
Love it. Love it.
So there's me, of course, and then there's my husband. So he and I have been together for 15 years now. So we've made it past that famous itch period.
Right?
We have been married for 9 years. So 2024 will be our 10-year anniversary. So
Nice.
some kind of special celebration is in the works. We'll figure that out. But yep, so we've been married for 10 years. We have two daughters. And our first daughter, Alice Catherine, was adopted in 2020. Oh, this is terrible. 2016. And
Okay.
then our second daughter, so born and adopted, they're domestic, US domestic adoptions. So born and adopted in 2016. And then our second daughter, Micah, is 2. Alice Catherine's 6.5. That half is really important when you're 6, of
Uh-huh.
course. And Micah is nearly 2. And we adopted her in 2021. So it's the 4 of us plus our 2 dogs, of course, in our house.
Excellent. Fur babies. Everybody needs a fur baby, right?
Of course, of course.
They're the ones that teach us to be parents, don't they?
Oh, it's so true. It's so true. And they really teach us how to be friends, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I still remember our family always had dogs growing up. And I remember my first dog, Jason, was my buddy. And I would ride him like a horse because he was a big dog and he'd let me. And so we grew up together and he was just my buddy. So he taught me how to be a friend.
Excellent. I love that. There are a variety of different ways that the 2S LGBTQIA+ community can start or grow their families. You
Yeah.
chose to use adoption. Can you tell me a little bit about why that was the path that you chose?
Yeah. Yeah, so when we were together and we made a decision, so maybe I could back up a little bit,
Of
if
course.
that's okay.
Of course.
Um, so when we got together, we always had this conversation about where we're going to build our family. Um, because quite frankly, right, I don't care whether you're gay, straight, or how you identify, whenever you're in a committed relationship, everybody always then asks, when are you having kids? So,
Mhm.
so we committed to, this is kind of a quirky story about us, but we committed to having that conversation once a year, once a year. And so we had that conversation at the top of the new year, every single year, to say, is this the year
Mhm.
that we will look into building our family? And for several years, the answer was no, no, no. And then in 2016, actually, so top of the year, January of 2016, we said, yes, this is the year that we are going to look to explore what our options would be to build our family. And when we went down that path, we explored everything. We explored surrogacy, we explored adoption, we explored foster to adopt. But the the long and the short of it was that we just really felt moved to adopt, right? That if there were children that needed a home and needed loving parents, that we fit that bill. And that just felt like the right process for us. And so that's what we did. So by I think March of that year, we were signed on with an adoption agency and built our profile. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but then the match process began.
Excellent. There are always costs associated when we create our families.
Mm-hmm.
None of it's done free, whether it's even adopting someone that you meet on the street, you're still going to need to incur legal costs for the paperwork for adoption. So it's never going to be free. Surrogacy tends to be at the highest end of the
Yes.
process.
Mm-hmm.
And in your case, surrogacy and adoption were your options because you don't have a uterus to use to carry your own child,
Right.
that you've told me about anyway. I don't
That's
think.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But in taking all of that into consideration, was that part of the decision-making process as well? The fact that surrogacy could be in the neighborhood of $100,000 per child.
Yeah, you've nailed it right on the head. So, yeah, I'll be direct about that. That yes, the cost factor certainly played into our decision making. And domestic adoption fell right in the middle. So in the U.S., so surrogacy, sure, but that there's the far other side, which is kids that are in state custody that then go into foster care, and then you can foster to adopt. And that those costs are typically paid for by the state. So the cost to adopt is nominal going that route. However, it could take years.
Right.
And I personally know and had friends who had been 5 years into a foster to adopt situation and were convinced that that adoption was going through, only to then have the child removed and returned to the biological family. And I'm not placing any judgment on that, but that was just
No.
devastating, heartbreaking. And then it was
Heartbreaking.
5 years lost. And then my friends had to start all over. So domestic adoption for us felt like it was a good middle ground where we weren't having to spend $100,000.
Yeah.
We still had to write a check.
Yeah. Oh, I'm
And
sure.
yep, and it fell kind of right in the middle. So that was
Yeah.
the cost of our first adoption.
Yeah.
And we did go a private boutique adoption agency that had a lot of networks throughout the country. So it enabled us to get matched quicker because they had access to more babies,
Okay.
more birth mothers who were considering adoption. But because it was boutique, it was a bit of a higher end price tag. But yes, anyway, that's a long-winded story. I'm so sorry.
No, it's
Yes,
great.
the short answer is cost was one of the things that we factored in, as well as other risks and other factors. But yeah, so yes, the cost was certainly something we considered.
It's not something to ignore, really and truly.
No,
The reality of the world is that we have to come up with the resources to be able to build our
yeah,
families, and some people can more easily accommodate a larger budget, and other people struggle to have any budget whatsoever. And it
yeah,
does feel in our community very elitist to be able to have a
yeah,
child or family to begin with.
absolutely. Yeah,
Um,
I would just to that point, like I would say we were, um, uh, we part of the decision in terms of surrogacy was we did not want to strap ourselves with significant debt. We were not in a position to write $100,000 check.
mhm.
And so not only did we not want to strap ourselves with our debt, but that meant then also strapping the child with the debt as well. So what we could provide for our new family would be constrained or impacted by the fact that we were carrying new debt. So yeah,
And they're all factors that go on the spreadsheet
yeah.
when you're putting it all together and making the decisions for
Oh,
sure.
Sam, the spreadsheets, the spreadsheets. Yes, there were multiple tabbed spreadsheets. Yes.
Do you think that the cisgendered heterosexual people out there who are thinking about starting a family have half the spreadsheets that we create when we're thinking about the process?
I don't think so. I have talked to my heterosexual couple friends, and we've compared notes both in terms of wedding planning, family planning, etc. And when we've told them how structured our process was, they literally asked us, "Can we have your Excel spreadsheets? Can we have your templates?"
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They knew you were
Should have
well
sold
planned.
them. I should have sold them and
You
tried to
should
recoup
have.
some cost.
Right? I don't know why you didn't. I truly just skipped your mind. Skipped your mind.
That's right.
With the amount that you ended up paying, was that about what you figured you would likely have to pay based on the conversations you had with different people in the agencies or peers that you knew who'd been
Yeah.
down similar paths?
Yeah. It was more. It was more than what we expected. We were carrying a budget of about 35 to $40,000. And our first adoption was 50. So it was a little bit more than what we had budgeted for. Um, but I guess whenever you're planning anything, whether it is a wedding or running a project, right, you always have to plan for going over budget.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, and this one certainly went over budget.
It also impacts how close together our children are in terms of
Yes.
have them when there is
Yes.
a budget that needs to be factored in. If you've gone over budget with your first child, as you say that you have, then when you bring a child like Micah into your family, is
Yep.
going to be potentially impacted by that excess that you spent the first time round.
Sure. Yeah. So Micah came 4 years later. Yeah, I have that math right, I think. No, is that right? Yes, that's right. So Micah came 4 years later. And oh, I'm so bad. Don't let my kids hear this podcast later in the future. They'll say, "Oh, you're a terrible dad." Um,
Do it as
so
teenagers when they think that we're all terrible anyway. That's when they
exactly.
can listen, right?
That's exactly
Of
right. Yeah,
course,
that's right.
that's what Dad said.
Yeah, yes. Oh, we knew he was terrible. We knew he was awful. Um, but yeah, we made the decision to have a second child, and the stories for both our adoptions are just so very unique and different. And I don't know if people, how you can sometimes hear people smiling. Like that's,
Yes.
yeah, I'm smiling right now. Listeners, I'm smiling right now just thinking about their very unique experiences. Um, but one, we went in with eyes wide open and assuming that we were going to have to pay that same price tag.
Mhm.
But we went in kind of from a timing perspective of being able to absorb that cost. We didn't have them closer together because, again, we wanted to make sure that we weren't carrying significant debt. So we built a cushion to be able to then have a second child without being strapped with debt, and said that required time.
Yeah. And were both of your children newborns when you became parents to them?
They were. So we were in the hospital for Alice Catherine, we were in the hospital within hours after she was born, I think within 12 hours. And then Micah, we were in the hospital within 24 hours after she was born. So, but yes, we were. Then they left the hospital in our arms.
That's
So,
amazing. That's
yeah.
amazing. And working with an agency, I assume that they then take the paperwork that needs to be completed and all of the processing that needs to happen so that you can leave the hospital as the only sole legal parents of this child. Is that correct? Or is there a difference because there's the caveat of them you being the adoptive parents, and there needing to be a threshold of time that needs to pass before that final paperwork can be your way? Is that it?
Yes. That's yeah, you just nailed it there. And every state operates differently.
Mm.
So we live in New Jersey. Alice Catherine was born in Pennsylvania. Micah was born in New York. And so our experience with Pennsylvania and Alice Catherine was very different than the experience that we had with Micah and New York. So Pennsylvania had, I think, oh golly, I'm going to get this wrong, but there's a period of time where a birth mother can revoke her decision, and then the child would then have to be returned to the biological family. That period of time was shorter. I think that's the case. No, it was longer for Alice Catherine. Sorry about that. So I think legal people don't quote me here, but or don't hold me accountable here. But I think Alice Catherine was close to 3 months that we had
Right.
to wait. So it was a very painfully long time. Micah was 30 days. And then after that period of revocation expires, then can begin the process to then schedule a court date to finalize the adoption. So we left the hospital as the child was in our custody as intended parents.
Okay.
Um, but the adoption agency actually was the guardian of the child until we had our court hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And that must have been just a terrifying period of time. As much as you're enjoying having a new baby and caring for this new child who you are pouring every ounce of love you have into, at the same time worrying about that spot in the back of your mind that this could change, this could be taken away from you, because we hear stories of that happening. It's not unusual. It does happen. So how do you not have those worries?
Yeah. So you think about it every single day. You try not to.
Mhm.
But at the same time, you're trying to bond. You need to bond with a newborn. The newborn needs to bond with you,
Mhm.
with its parent. And so you can't stop the bonding process. And at the same time, there is this threat that all of that can be taken away in the blink of an eye.
Mhm.
Um, and it is absolutely terrifying. So we marked our calendar. In true structured format, we marked our calendar and counted down the days.
Yeah.
And they were, big sighs of relief that happened when we got to that big, circle on the calendar that said that we're not legal adoptive parents, but we were in the safe zone now.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure yeah, that you would absolutely, there's no way you wouldn't be thinking about it every day and just hoping. Did you have communication with either of the birthing parents that carried your children prior to the birth, or between the birth and the adoption?
Yeah, so Alice Catherine's, we did, and it's very different for each child.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
Alice Catherine's birth mother, we matched with her in her first trimester,
Mm.
because she was in a neighboring state, and she was open to it. We had in-person visits with her all throughout her pregnancy.
Wow.
We had in-person visits with her family throughout her pregnancy.
Cool.
So it was a very welcoming, experience, which was for both sides, both us and for her family, of feeling like we are just growing our family differently.
Mhm.
So they felt like they were inheriting two more people into their family, and we felt like we were inheriting, a whole slew of people into ours.
Right.
That was fantastic. And then because we had established this relationship even post birth, the communication with Alice Catherine's mother continued and still continues. We just recently went to a birthday party with her. So
Wow.
yeah, and it was Alice Catherine's first time meeting her mother since the hospital. So it was pretty cool, actually. It was
Yeah.
pretty cool. Micah, on the other hand, was very much different.
Okay.
we had been waiting nearly a year to be matched, and we weren't matched, and we had just this is and there's some irony in the story. It's a fun story to tell. The night prior, we had my husband and I had had a conversation, and he specifically said to me, I'm becoming resigned to the fact that we will not get matched and we will not have a second child. And we had said, okay, by this date, if that doesn't happen, we're pulling the plug and we're just gonna, zero in on the one child that we have, and be happy with that and be fine with it.
Mm-hmm.
He just had this conversation with me the night prior, going to bed, and he was just like, I just need to share that with you. And so there were hugs and comfort, and there might have been a little tear or two in that resignation. And the next afternoon, we got an email from the adoption agency saying that a mother has just delivered a child and did not know she was pregnant.
Wow.
Did not know she was pregnant. Showed up at the hospital, delivered a child, and has decided that she would like to go the adoption route. And we are searching for an immediate family to be here tomorrow because the baby is being discharged. So,
Okay.
right, we had just had the conversation and started to kind of do the emotional, like, let's throw in the towel. And the universe said, stop. Like, I've got a plan and let me prove it to you.
Yeah.
And so we had no we didn't know her birth mother prior to, because there was no process. And so we met her for the first time in the hospital the day of discharge.
Wow.
And what was cool about that experience was she did not want to form an attachment with Micah.
Right.
And so after she gave birth, she specifically asked to not hold the baby, to not have the baby in her room, to not be part of this baby's life, because she did not want to form a bond. And so when we arrived at the hospital and we met her, and I'm a social worker, so I'm like this like softy, touchy-feely guy. And so like I kind of went over to her in this very comforting way and expressed our gratitude, and
Mhm.
how much we are so appreciative of her and grateful for her, and how well we're going to take care of this child, blah 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 blah, right? But I also said, and I know that she hadn't seen the baby, and I said, we're all leaving the hospital today. Would you like to meet her together? And she just kind of looked at me and she kind of gave me the nod. And so the first time she actually saw Micah, like, cleaned up and in clothes and right. We did that together. And so that was kind of really a special moment that we shared. And it was a few moments, and she was like, okay, like that, you know, we have to end that,
Yeah,
because it's painful, right? It's painful.
absolutely.
Or let me, it's not easy, right? I can only presume how hard it must be to make
Yeah.
that decision.
Yes.
But it was a moment that we did share together. So there was a little bit of communication then after the birth. And then we're in a moment right now, and this happens a lot with open adoption, where we are not getting any communication from her, but we are super respectful of that. And so we're sharing information. And when she's ready to engage us again, if she is ever ready to engage us
Right.
again, we're here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's truly, with the opportunity she's provided to you and your family to be a family of four
Yeah.
now, then really the only thing you can give her is time and respect, so that if
Absolutely.
she is ever ready to come back and just learn a little bit more about the child she birthed on your behalf,
Mm-hmm.
then the door's open, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. That's right. Yeah. So anyway, so that was a long story. So I'm
No,
sorry. very chatty with your answers to your questions. But I told you in the beginning, I'm that dad. I love to talk about my family and our family's, formation story.
I love it. I love it. Hold on for just a moment. We'll be right back.
This episode of Becoming Baby Ready is brought to you by Twig Fertility, a modern fertility clinic located in Midtown Toronto. At Twig, we believe that everyone deserves to build a family. We champion inclusivity and welcome people from across the full spectrum of lived experience. We proudly serve the 2S LGBTQIA+ community and are a trans-affirming space, offering a full range of family building options, including third-party coordination. For more information or to book a consult, visit twigfertility.com.
Are there any words of caution that you would share with other 2S LGBTQIA+ community members about the way you went about creating your family? Or did it go other than not being matched for a year, because that would take its toll. I would think it would take its toll on an individual, but it has the potential to take its toll on a couple or a family too.
Sure. Yeah. I would, I think there's a couple things. We were fortunate in both of our adoptions. So our story is, I don't know if it's typical or atypical, to be honest with you. I don't know what the stats are. So I can't sit here and spout off the percentage of adoptions that are disrupted, or just don't, that fall through. But that, from an adoption perspective, that's a very real risk of investing, emotionally investing, and then having an adoption fall through. And I don't know how you prepare for that, other than to know that it's a risk and that it could happen. And then I think we have other friends of ours who are just early on in their family kind of formation and how they're going about that process, and they're not going the adoption route. They're going to go the surrogacy route, and their process has been interesting in watching them as a couple. I think that one of them was more ready than another, and that also has the risk of taking a significant toll, because I know when I'm ready for something, I just want to go do it. It's like I made up my mind. I'm ready to go. Come on, come with me.
Yeah,
let's go.
Exactly.
And it is a testament to the strength of a couple to honor your partner's space, timeline, and make sure that you're ready as a couple, not as an individual within a coupled relationship.
No, so I think that's very true. I think that's very true.
By the way, they're both ready, so that's why they're
excellent.
So there you go.
Fabulous. Yeah. I would think too, and I mean, to be fair, I think that anyone who's thinking about starting a family could probably benefit if they're doing it with a partner. They'd probably benefit from sitting down and speaking with someone, a professional, someone, about the kinds of changes and things like that they face. I feel as though we may be more conscious of it in our community because our babies don't happen accidentally, whereas so many other families are created, just when I'm planning to get pregnant, I get pregnant, and there's no questions. And we don't think about necessarily the potential ramifications and effects on the dynamic of the couple as a whole, especially when you're looking at creating your family with your first child. I would think that, you're a social worker. I think you can probably speak to the fact that there's got to be some benefit in, as you're going down that path, making sure that you are on the same page by speaking to a professional who's unbiased outside of the dynamics of the two of you.
100%. I am a huge, it doesn't have to be therapy, right? Like, let's be clear about that. You don't need to go into couples counseling. You don't need a couples therapy or marriage therapist, but having a neutral party to be the safe place to just bounce ideas, unload, right? Just that safe place, that neutral ground. And then to be the arbiter or when there's disagreement in a way that isn't, I'm going to stomp through my house and be angry with you. Like, no, we're going to work this out.
Right.
And we're going to do this in a way that is kind, caring, supportive, and constructive.
That's a big piece.
So we didn't do that, but I don't disagree with you that I think everyone could benefit from doing that if they have that at their disposal, if they have that resource, or they know someone like you
There you go.
who could
Well,
do that with them.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, exactly, exactly. It's just, as you say, just that neutral party that can offer different perspectives sometimes, because we get caught up in our emotions, right? Family planning is emotion first.
Yeah. Yeah. And can I get real too? Like, I need to ask permission. I think you want me to get real.
I do do it. Come on.
Well, it's funny. So, two children in, one is 6.5 years old, and I still have these moments. So I'm going to say, even after the planning process, but once you become a parent, and I think especially true in families where there is intentional, creation, like family creation, like ours. I feel an immense, this is personal, we're getting real here, but I feel immense burden of responsibility to be perfect because we chose this, because we adopted that, like we should provide like the best childhood. And when I mess up, and I do, because all parents mess up,
Because you're human.
I can be really hard on myself, because I was like, I find myself worried that like two other women entrusted me with the children that they gave birth to, and am I living up to be worthy of that trust that they have given me? And so, listen, I'm not breaking down on this podcast, but that is something that my husband will tell you, that I probably, that's the thing about parenting or parenthood for me that has been the hardest, is giving myself permission to make mistakes just like any other parent, because I just feel this immense burden to be more perfect.
Yeah, I think that absolutely makes sense. And I think that goes in line with you feel guilty on the days when you don't absolutely love being a parent.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
and somebody once said to me, when my eldest, who's now in his mid-20s, when my eldest was very young, one of my friends sat down with me and said, there's going to be something that you love and something that you hate about every single day of parenting. Whether you hate their behavior, but you love their snuggles, whether you hate that they live far away, but you love that they call, whatever it is, whenever they are, wherever they are on their life path. And I thought, wow, that's profound. And as I looked at my parenting over the years, I thought, I think that's more true than I think a lot of us give ourselves permission to have it be true, because we don't love our job every day, even when we love our job every day. We don't love our spouse. Well, we don't like our spouse necessarily every day, even though we want to stay married to them every day.
Right.
It's okay with people that share the roof over your head, that you don't just love every single second about them, but it doesn't mean you don't love them. But man, can that just rip a hole in your heart and make you feel guilty?
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yes.
Oh.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah. No, 100%. So, yeah, I'm glad we're talking about it. So, I mean, this is, well into parenthood, but, you know, uh, it's just real, and we do have to give ourselves permission to be imperfect. We have to give ourselves permission to feel, and be human.
Yeah. No, I agree. I fully agree. Have there been periods of time throughout this entire journey of starting through to where you are now that you've been made to feel the other throughout this process as parents or
Okay.
hopeful
Say more.
parents or
Say more. I want to make sure I'm following you there.
so often and sometimes they're microaggressions. The paperwork that you fill out when you go to the adoption agency talks about the husband and the wife or what have you. People look at you funny about the fact that you're two men walking down the street holding hands with two young girls who don't look like you, to be fair. And so they make little comments or they give you little looks or they, just the othering that seems to happen that, someone once said to me, I know it happens every day, but I think it happens so often that I don't even pay attention to it anymore. And I feel like that's even worse.
Yeah. Yeah, I can think of a couple things. And I think whoever said that to you, I probably fall into that category too. That I probably just don't see as much of what happens. I've just tuned it out because it's just what occurs. But I can tell you that I do when I have filled out the birth certificates, because you have to file for new birth certificates, and I have scratched out mother's name because it's like, who's the father and who's the mother? Well, we don't have a father and a mother. Thank you very much. We have a father and a father in our household. So I definitely like that. I do it with force when I'm at home on my table. I'm like, scratch.
Yes.
Mother in this household.
Yep.
So yes, so in those cases, it's like, oh, we're not the normal family, and I need to cross this off. And why haven't we, in the year 2023, caught up our flippin' paperwork to be very inclusive? Like, that's just ridiculous. It's so annoying. Yeah, thanks for ripping the scab off this wound. I can feel me now. My whole attitude's changing. I'll say the other thing, and I don't know if this is a microaggression or not, because I can't validate the reason other people do this.
Okay.
But I am hypersensitive to now. So I have a dark-skinned African-American baby, and then Alice Catherine is biracial, and so she's got some African-American characteristics, but her skin is lighter in color, and but so they don't look like us, to your point, to folks who've not seen pictures of my kids. They don't look like us, who we are Caucasian men. So some of this I experience more in the racial than I do sometimes in the two men situation. But I'll be holding Micah, who's my dark-skinned child, or darker skinned child, and I'll get the oh, isn't that cute? Like, what's cute? What's cute? That a white man is taking care of a black baby? Like, no, it's just a father and a daughter. Like, get over yourself. Like, no pity here. No, like, we're not rescuing an African American child. So that gets under my craw pretty easily when I feel like people are overly like expressive of gratitude or like appreciation for what we've done. Like, no, we've just created a family. And that's it. Just like, would you go up to a white mom holding a white daughter and say, oh, how cute, like, oh, you're doing a great thing, mom? Like, stop with that stuff. So that's me. I might be hypersensitive to the fact, that I have different race babies and how that's perceived. But I also am very fortunate that I live in a very accepting community. So I have one. I was going to say, generally we don't experience it, but I have one. I have one.
Well, then lay it on me.
This was recent. This was recent. So I write children's books.
You do, and we were coming to that. Yes.
Well, I'm not trying to like wedge it in, but this is just so timely and relevant. I can't believe that I almost forgot about it. So I write children's books, and I write children's books based on my family because we weren't reading any or seeing any books that we were reading to our children that represented families like ours, which was two men with two different race children. So I started writing children's books with my family being featured in the books so that my kids could see families like theirs reflected. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to go into that right now. But when my daughter was in preschool, I offered to come read to the class and read my books because my books do represent a different family composition or structure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important for kids to be exposed to a variety of family structures. Okay, so I did that in preschool. Cool, great. This year she just got done kindergarten, and I offered to do the same for kindergarten. And 2 days before I'm scheduled to go in and read to her class, I'm going through her backpack, and I'm pulling out all of her paperwork, and I see this note from the principal. Why is my daughter in kindergarten getting a note sent home from the principal? And it was the parental warning note saying that Tom Tracy is coming in to read a story to the class. We want to advise you that his books feature same-sex families, and we know that this might be an issue for some people. I was horrified. That, well, and so many levels, like so my child just got singled out, right? Like,
yep.
In this process. So we now don't know what conversations happened at home as a result of this parental warning note about a storybook about, I mean, my book that I read to them was about roller skating, for crying out loud. It wasn't about a gay agenda. It was about roller skating that featured her dads in the damn book. Like, come on.
Yeah. It's indoctrination.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
So I was when I took that out of her backpack, and I think I previously shared this with you, like my jaw was on the floor. I didn't know what to do.
Right.
My husband was infuriated.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so yes, I guess we do experience some othering as a result of just who we are. Yeah.
And it is sadly not surprising that you had to pause and think about it, because it does happen, and it does become part of our everyday life experiences. So we stop sort of filing them away as things that have happened necessarily, because that book would be too big to carry if we wrote them all down.
Yeah, that's so true.
And that's sad, truly.
Yeah.
You mentioned your books, and truthfully, that was where I was going next. And you told us sort of the premise behind them. And one of the things that I love that you just said was that the book was about roller skating. It wasn't, this is my family with two dads and two children of different races than the dads, but it is just a book about roller skating, and presumably a family going roller skating.
Yeah.
What is the thought process as you're putting these books together? First of all, tell us who the main characters are, because it's just adorable. But then tell us, what is the premise and the thinking behind the books that you're putting together?
Yeah, thank you. So my books are under the umbrella of Scoochie and Skiddles. So Scoochie and Skiddles are the main characters. So, all of my books are under that collection. Mm-hmm. The name of that collection is the Scoochie and Skiddles collection. Scoochie is my daughter. So it's Alice Catherine. And when she was born, or after she was born, and we we actually had to stay in a hotel for 10 days. We weren't allowed to return to our home state until we got clearance to do so. So, um, so we had her in the crib, and even early age, this girl couldn't stay still in her crib. She was moving and squirming and all over the place. And my husband, as we as parents do, you just start assigning nicknames as things occur.
Right.
And so her nickname became Scoochie Pants. And so Scoochie, shortened to Scoochie, is one of the main characters. And then her cousin is the other main character in the story, and that is Skiddles. So her nickname. So they're the main characters. And the books really kind of highlight their experiences, but it's it's kind of like, as I watch them, they're reteaching me and other adults about the things that we have forgotten, important life lessons that we've forgotten. So when those kind of things happen, when those life lesson experiences happen, I now watch that from a different eye, and I'm like, oh, that's the topic of a book.
Yes.
And so the roller skating book, which is my most recent book, uh, shameless plug, Practice Makes Progress by Tom Tracy, available online. But Practice Makes Progress is about my daughter started taking roller skating lessons. She was very nervous at first. She saw other kids doing very well. She didn't think that she could perform as well. And then after a few weeks of lessons, she got progressively better. And then in that getting progressively better, she got more confident, and then found the joy in this activity that she was nervous about initially. And then her cousin started coming because her cousin saw how much fun it was. So her cousin started coming for lessons. So this story is about them roller skating and about that experience, but it's about, not facing your fears, and persevering and getting past that initial block that affects all of us. Like, it haunts all of us, like that fear of, am I going to screw this up? Am I not going to do this? Yeah. What if I fail?
Yeah,
And finding joy on the other side of that.
for sure.
And I always wanted to make the books be a celebration of family, not of my family per se, but just the power, the unity, the strength that family brings. And so, like, this book ends on, finding the joy in learning something new and developing a new skill, and how that's magnified when you do it with someone that you love.
Right.
So
I love that.
yeah.
I love that. I will make sure to be putting into the show notes where people can find this and
Awesome. Thank
buy
you.
buy this whole collection. And you tell me, like, I've seen you on Instagram, and so you promote them on Instagram as well. Want to put a shameless plug in for your Instagram handle too while we're here?
Yeah, sure. Why not? So my Instagram is, I guess I'm going to have to spell it because I should have took names that were a little easier. I didn't think about this, but Scoochie _and_ Skiddles. Scoochie is SCOOCHIE _and_ Skiddles, spelled SKIDDLES, because if I spelled Skittles with 2 T's, I'd have a copyright issue with the candy. So
fair enough. Rainbow colored or not.
That's right. Yeah, no, but thank you for talking about the books. I do have another one that is about my family. So I do have a book that actually tells her adoption story. So we capture our whole adoption experience in a book. But what inspired that particular book wasn't me wanting to tell the story. I actually observed her telling her adoption story to a girl on the playground one day.
Wow.
And I just sat there in awe watching this, at the time, this 5-year-old talk to a 10-year-old about being adopted. And I was amazed and had the most proud dad moment watching it. Like, I think I might have cried a little bit. I just was like, you always worry, especially, for adoption, at least, you always worry, is the child not going to feel, are they going to feel othered? Right.
Right. Of course.
Yeah. And she was just like so proud. And this little girl just lighted up. Like, she just took it in. She wasn't judging. She was so interested and captivated by my daughter's story. And again, one of those moments where I'm like, my daughter, like, I've got to capture this experience and tell it to others through a book.
Right.
So
it's amazing, because we do sometimes, as you say, need to see the world through the lens of our children's eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is your very, very favorite part of being a parent?
The snuggles.
Oh,
The snuggles.
absolutely.
And the snuggles, and I, told you, I'm a social worker. I am like touchy-feely. I'm all about the feelings and the emotions. So yeah, the snuggles and watching my daughters, plural, daughters, hard for a 2-year-old, but my daughter's emotional development just is so touched. I mean, my 2-year-old, if I stub my toe and I go, oh, she, by the way, they call me Odie. I should probably say this because I'm about to announce that. So Odie, which is the letters O and D standing for other daddy. So I'm Odie.
Okay.
So yes.
I love it.
So I stub my toe, and Micah will just look at me. Okay, Odie. I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm okay. Come give me a hug. That's just beautiful at 2 years old. Like, yes.
Oh.
So yeah, I think my most favorite thing is seeing their emotional development, and selfishly being a little bit on the receiving end of that is just like so fulfilling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I fully get what you're saying with that. I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to chat with me about your life and your family creation. I truly believe that us telling the stories of our family creation helps those who come behind us as they make the decisions about the best paths for themselves.
Yeah, it's been a joy, and I'm happy to have been here. Thank you for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for joining me today on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share, or you know someone who might, if you're a professional who works in the capacity of helping people start and grow their families, and you identify as being a part of the 2S LGBTQIA plus community yourself, then please don't hesitate to reach out. We always have room for more stories to share, and there's always more learning to do.